Hi, everyone. This is Auto Asphyxiation. This is Lark, and
Kimberly.
yes. And today you know what? We're finally talking about the topic that we've always kind of wanted to talk about, but we haven't. We're talking about white men. But we're not coming for you. I mean, we're both married to white men, so we're not coming for
Yes.
you, but we are. Okay, anyway. like I'll tell you something. Donald Shoup has passed away, and Donald Shoup was a great he was a great urbanist. He was a person that I've interviewed. I've had many conversations with. He wrote the book High Cost of Free Parking in 2005. It's a huge book about parking, and I read the entire thing, which is probably kind of hilarious. Actually, let's just take like a few seconds to you know, in respect for him passing away last week. Okay. All right, we did that. All right. Anyway, so I went to his memorial. It was virtual because even though I'm from Los Angeles, now I'm in New Jersey, so I wasn't able to go to his actual memorial service. So I went to a virtual service. And at this service, and this is like I hope you guys don't take this the wrong way because I totally appreciated going. I totally felt like this was an important event, and I love Donald Shoup. But at the memorial service, we all kind of talked, and they were just like a lot. It was a predominantly white men, white middle class, advanced educated men, and they were like, "Yeah, the thing about like transportation and parking is not a political issue." And in my head, I was like, or you know what? I didn't say political, but it's not partisan. It's something that they were kind of like saying it's something that people on the left and right, as long as you're a white man, you can kind of agree with it. They didn't say this, but that was the impression I was getting. And then the very next day, Trump made this statement about reversing congestion pricing and also criticizing high speed rail, just saying it was the worst project ever. I can't do my Trump impression. And like that's kind of like what we're talking about. And what do you think about that, Kimberly? Like, why would somebody think that parking, the transportation is a bipartisan, like something that the right would agree with?
Well, I think also when we were talking also a little bit about congestion pricing and regards to that whole thing, and there was such a big fight to actually get it put into place. It's been put into place, and it has been an overwhelming success. Um, Accidents are way down, injuries are way down, revenue goals are being met. Revenue goals means better things for New York City. Um, and the streets are less packed. So you're sitting in less traffic. It's working. There's less congestion because of the congestion pricing. People are taking trains. I do feel like transportation is definitely a political issue in the United States, especially, and it is a very partisan thing. And I think that a lot of white guys are just kind of like, well, of course it's not, partisan or political because it doesn't really affect them because they're not really the ones that are using public transportation, and they're kind of going to their like 9 to 5 office jobs, and like traffic is an expectation and I'm sitting in my cocoon, so it's okay.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. Is is weird. It's like I have friends that like kind of ride their bikes and all this stuff, and it's kind of like they're just like, oh, well, congestion pricing, the actual public transit, because they ride their bicycle, so they kind of view it as like a non. It's not about that public transit aspect of it isn't part of me, and it's kind of like congestion pricing. When I went to New York, I've been going to Manhattan. It's so much easier to get around because we aren't having these people driving there, and also too, public transit is like safer now because it's like
because there's more
there's
people.
more people, and it's kind of like more people makes it safer. And I'm just kind of like, in my own head, I'm just kind of like, well, how is this not viewed as a bipartisan issue? And I think it's it's really weird because it's like, I mean, I think about space, and the control of it is a political thing, and like well, we have a discussion group called Space as a Means of Production, and who controls it is always a political issue. And like white men with degrees, it's like advanced degrees, it's like they don't seem that transportation or urban planning is a bipartisan issue. It's like they think it's like, well, everyone agrees. Like, and in my head, I'm like, where, where are you living?
Yeah.
Like, I don't understand.
Well, and I think, and I don't think that, I think there are some people that are purposefully doing this because, we see in Texas, they are very well educated and they're making laws that are hurting people with that education. And I think that people do that in transit as well. That it's transportation and access to it is inherently political because it keeps populations segregated and inaccessible from public services, jobs, just anything in life, really. And it can be separated from politics. You look at Europe, which has a very robust public transportation system throughout the entire continent. It's not a partisan thing because everybody understands you need that to get around and to have a decent life. It has become a partisan thing in the United States because whereas the Democratic Party and the left-wing parties really see public transportation as a means of economic and societal improvement and accessibility, the right wing sees it, they don't say it out loud, but the right wing sees it as a means to segregate the working class and people of color from the suburbs and from public functions, public things that we need access to. Like we were talking about last week, accessing the DMV or your elections office.
No, it's like, oh my God. Like, I mean, I think the thing is so weird. It's like, we're in the New York metro area, even though we're in New Jersey, we're actually New York metro area, or the area we call metro. I feel like we should like get rid of the whole New York metro area and just call it the metro.
Yeah.
And it's really weird. It's like, I feel like it's interesting because, I'm alum of the new school, and they're very much into this whole like idea of like, uh what do call it, we need to focus on class. Identity is not a thing. We need to focus on class. But it's like, it's weird. It's like they had this faith in these men that clearly are not who are anti-climate crisis, who are pro-car, and they seem to think, and it's weird because it seems like to me this demographic in some ways feels like the reason why they can't have the urbanism that they want, the urbanism that is dense, that has public transit, that has bike lanes. It's because of people of color. It's like weird. They think the real people who are causing this problem are the people of color who don't want to lose their homes for gentrification. Like they think that's the focus. Like I feel like they focus a lot on that. I mean, I'm kind of in that world, and they talk a lot about these people who are kind of like, you don't understand, like, and they focus on this kind of like, on Black and Latino or Latin people, but not so much on these like rich white men who are, I almost feel like they think like, oh, we're all white men, we all agree. And I'm like, as you say, and I agree with you, race is a social construct. They don't agree with you. They don't think you're the same white men as them. But like, it's weird. It's like in this election, it seemed like they still didn't get it. Like they still didn't understand like this, like these other dudes don't think they're the same dudes. Like they feel like they're different.
Well, until we really disrupt hegemony and we disrupt that separation by race. Because we know that they do that on purpose to further divide the classes, but it's still a thing that exists, so we need to address that. And until hegemony is disrupted, we can't address the separation of the classes, because the white men have owned the narrative and gotten the approval of the middle class and working class white men to go, yeah, no, everybody's agreeing, look, all thumbs up. And they're not really looking at the actual facts and the actual details of how this is hurting white working class people as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the thing. It's like it's weird. It's like, okay, this is the whole, like, one of the very popular narratives is like, oh, if you get educated, then you understand. But the thing is that in my head, I'm like, well, Jewish people who don't have college degrees and Black people who don't have college degrees, they understand to not vote for fascism, but yet, like, white Christians seem to not understand that. It's like, I'm kind of like, is this kind of like some weird Santa Claus thing? Like, oh, if you just get a college degree, you'll understand. And it was like weird because at like that memorial, it's like a lot of like white men, when they heard the message, like, oh, we're like, Trump thought that high-speed rail is ridiculous and that we need to like end congestion pricing in New York. They were just kind of like, well, but what? Why? I don't understand. Like they seemed like they were surprised. And I have to say, I'm slightly annoyed because there were so many white men with degrees who are kind of like, journalists. They talked about Karen, which I think is really sexist. I know it's weird, but I really hate the whole Karen thing, because I feel like it's we're still not talking about white men. We're still not talking about white men. So it's like I'm kind of like in my own head. I'm like, when I hear white men talking about Karen, I'm like, shut the fuck up. Shut up. Shut up.
Like, that what white Karens do is an extension of like what a lot of like white men want to do in public, like those public freakouts. So, like it's kind of like they're just offing that and just saying, oh, it's just a crazy woman, look at her, she's just being so emotional. Like, I would never do that, but really inside they probably do. And I think a lot of them egg their wives or, white women friends on to act like that in public.
No, I do agree with that. I mean, I think about, like, it's like they always kind of use, oh, it's a woman. I mean, I was weird. We had so many op-eds on like Latinos, written by white men, on Latinos, on Black people, on white women. I'm like, what about you? Why don't you do an op-ed on white men? And by the way, white Christian men, why can't you do some op-ed? Like, are you afraid of them? I mean, because it's kind of like, it's really, I mean, here's the thing. I don't really want to like be the person that's like talking about like kind of like these working class, like rural white men. I'm talking about white men in New York, white men in Los Angeles. It's like you have advanced degrees and passports and they can leave if they want to. So I don't feel like I'm like coming for people who kind of like don't have any options. You have options. And I understand that. And maybe that's why you have this kind of like, I don't understand like why during the election in New York, I had a lot of white women friends and, my white Jewish friends who are women across, even if they didn't have a college degree, they were like, trying to like get the Democratic Party elected, trying to get Harris elected. I had a little like, all of my educated, like in regards to like college educated white women friends, they were definitely trying to get Harris elected. But the white men, and I have to say this, and I don't want to be like, I love my husband. He's such a sweetie. He's like a sweetie. But I feel like he didn't like, he was kind of like, oh, I don't want to like push it as much. Like, and I felt like What the hell was that about?
I think that you're right, because I mean, I saw it with my husband as well. And my husband voted for Harris and knew that it was important and did talk to some people, but wasn't as loud and advocating as the women were in general. And I do think, and I'm not saying this about our husbands in particular, but I think that men in general, um, I really think that there is an underlying hatred and fear of women in power that is a strong undercurrent, especially amongst well educated, middle class white men. And I think that they feel like that because, and I don't think they can even really put that feeling into words. It's a subconscious thing. And I think part of it is because there is a male loneliness crisis going on. And there is a lack of direction for a lot of men who, for decades, we've been putting it into men's brains that they're the provider, they're the breadwinner. They have to go to work and suck it up even if they don't like it, because they got to put food on the table, because they have a wife and they have children and they have this nice house that everything needs to be maintained through that. And women are in positions of power. Women are breadwinners now in many American homes. A lot of women don't stay home. If they have children, they're taken to daycare or school. A lot of women don't have children now. And I feel like that overwhelming narrative that we've put into men's brains of I'm the provider, I'm the sole breadwinner, I'm the head of household. Now they're rudderless. And it's whenever any group or individual it feels a lack of control, a lack of where they're going, they don't understand their future, that comes out as anger, that comes out as hate, that comes out as fear. And they do, I see it all the time in the nursing industry, where women are always in the high up positions of power. And you do see a lot of pushback from men who are aides, who are nurses' aides, men who are new hire nurses, and they're mouthing off to women administrators. And it really is this kind of undercurrent of my position is being taken away, and that I'm afraid of that.
I think that's, I mean, we've talked about that another time, because I remember I was talking about my husband and he was just saying men don't know what to do. And I'm just kind of we really have to talk about this, because in regards to solidarity and things, it's so disappointing. I mean, I think about especially urbanist white men, which a lot of urbanists are white men. And I think about the Biden-Harris infrastructure law. Essentially, it was groundbreaking. If I were going to be 100% honest, a lot of my support for Harris was because of that Biden-Harris infrastructure law that was $1.2 trillion. It talked about grants, safe streets, port efficiency. I mean, sustainable transportation. And in my head, I'm this is groundbreaking. This could change our society. I mean, the way, okay, how can I say this in a way that doesn't sound like I'm a jerk, but the way that the Civil Rights Act, the 1960s Civil Rights Act, I felt like the Infrastructure Act could have done that for transportation. It was that amazing, that groundbreaking. And I felt a lot of educated white men. And then here's the thing: at that memorial I went to, these were PhDs in economics, PhDs in public policy, in geography, and it's did you guys really think it was bipartisan? Yes, it was bipartisan technically, but did you really think the right was going to continue to support this? What the, I felt if you loved urbanism, if you cared about giving people options outside of driving. You should have been out there. And I did not see urbanists out there. I understand a lot of urbanists who are white men loved Bernie. I'll put it this way. My mom loves Bernie so much. She sent me a Bernie T-shirt. I wish I could have it, like a show you. Like my mom sent me a Bernie T-shirt. Like she loves Bernie, but like in the I'm not kind of trying to dismiss that. I understand he's like a wonderful person, but I feel like if you loved urbanism, how could you not like do whatever you could to make sure that the whole Biden Harris thing continued, because trillions of dollars. That's all. I mean, I was in New Jersey. I was literally supporting people and helping people to write grants for different projects in New Jersey. And now all of that is gone because of this Trump thing. And I'm just like, you didn't, how do you feel about the fact that I'm like, you didn't fucking try. Like, you didn't try as hard as white women. Like, these urbanist dudes did not try as hard. And here's the thing. I love my husband, but I was just really like, oh my God, like, can you talk to your freaking friends? Like, before the election, I was just like, you love trains. You love that. And I go to the whole like hobby thing. He has this whole train club and they are like on trains and stuff. And I'm like, you should bring this up. People respect you. Like my husband's a PhD. He has tenure. He's respected. Like, I'm like, but like, he didn't look like, well, I don't want to like, I'm like, what? I don't know. Like, what's going on with white men? Like, what is going on?
Well, and that's, us, like we were, I do think that the transportation bill, the infrastructure bill was bipartisan when it passed. Of course, Trump and the diehard MAGAs were, bad mouthing it from the very beginning. And they're so insidious and their propaganda is so strong that they are really very able to change perceptions very easily. And they demand party loyalty at all costs. So it doesn't matter, even if some of these people that supported the infrastructure bill initially now are going back on it. Of course they're going back on it. MAGA demands their party loyalty. So even if their conscience is telling them, this is good for the American people and I'm a representative of the American people and I'm supposed to do what's good for them and right for them, their self-saving mentality is going to have them just go along with whatever MAGA says because they want to save themselves. They want to save their paychecks. They want to save their political careers. And, I was also, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. I'm just kind of like in my whole head. I'm just like, what is like kind of like, not the working class white man, but what is the middle class, like educated, like white man's role in this? It's like, it's like, I have to say, I mean, I looked, it's kind of like all this commentary on like Latinos, on Native Americans, on Black men. And I'm like, they're kind of like, it's always kind of thing. Well, if you're educated, you will understand that racism is bad, or like, you won't vote for MAGA. But again, college educated white men still voted for Trump. Like literally, like, are you for real? And it's kind of like, I'm in my head, I'm just like, this is just, white women are, and I'm just looking at white Christian women, 57% voted for Harris, which is actually, I have to say, we have to applaud. I know like white women have been given a lot of like, oh, well, you didn't, whatever. But in regards to college educated white women, 57% voted for Harris. But what white men who were educated, they still voted for Trump. And like, there was no commentary on that. And it was just no, like literally, like we just accept. It's kind of like, what do you call it? Like, what do you call it? It's kind of like we accept their helplessness or something. I forgot. There was something like on the internet. And it's kind of like, oh, they don't understand. Like, we can't expect them to do anything at all. And I'm just kind of like, oh, they can't do housework. They can't vote for the right person. They
Yeah,
can't,
like,
they can't not vote for fascism. Like, do we have any expectation for like college? Because that's not the whole thing. They're like, oh, if people knew, if they went to college, they would understand that racism is bad, like, fascism is bad, blah blah blah. And then here's the thing: in Germany, in France, in England, they all understand that. But in the US, literally no, they're still voting for horrible people. What
and
role do white educated men have in this? Should we why are we not pushing them?
well, and I think that the decades of the patriarchy telling men to quash down their emotions, that they have to man up, it's really crushed any kind of empathy or compassion. And because that empathy and compassion is crushed, it also affects their relationships with other men. They're not able to have conversations that might lead to heightened emotions, like having a conversation about an election, because those heightened emotions they've been told to stay away from. So they don't want to bring up that. And it's much easier to be hyper masculine and be like, I'm a man and look how big and strong I am, than to admit that you're a person that makes mistakes and has feelings and emotions. I saw a meme the other day and it really, like, it hit me so hard. It was so funny. It was like a cartoon and it was a man in a bathtub and it had like psychedelic swirls in the background. And it had a woman sitting there and it said, me babysitting my white man boyfriend on his psychedelic journey so that he can gain empathy like I gained when I was 16. And there's like a little speech bubble coming out of his mouth that says, wow, so like other people have feelings. And the patriarchy has really quashed that about men. And it's funny, but it's true. There are so many men that I know in my personal life that have taken mushrooms or acid and are suddenly like, oh my God, I can hurt other people with my actions.
I'm like thinking, like, should we do something like that? Like, should we have some kind of like thing where we're kind of like, we give white men like mushroom psychedelics so they can like, and like help them work through this whole. I mean, I know it sounds weird, but I'm like, we're at a loss right now. Like, if put this way, it's like this. At first, we're kind of like, well, they don't know because they don't have a degree, they don't have money. Okay, if white men who have PhDs make $100,000 a year can't figure out how to relate to other white men because they're just like, I don't know how to talk to them. Like, I mean, like, do we need to do this? Do we need to like take them on a journey and like be like, you need to like fix this? I mean, here's the thing. I mean, it's like they don't want to like ruin their friendships. And I'm just like, well, would you rather us be under authoritarian fascism because you don't want to like take that risk of making people upset with you? It's just wild to me. I go
And
to like
sometimes it's like, well, if you kind of, don't you want to know about your friends and their deeper feelings and deeper morality so that you can maybe
exactly.
choose if they should be your friend or not? Like, because I don't personally in my life, I don't want to hang out with people that vote for fascists. And people are like, oh, so you just cut people off because of politics? Absolutely, I do. Absolutely, I do.
Well, I think the thing is like what with like guys, I feel like, and here's the thing, I wonder how we'll respect their whole experience, but it's like I think with guys, it's kind of like I like a sport event, I like a hobby event. So like in order to like do these hobby and sport events, sometimes I have to hang out with people who don't have the same politics as me. But I'm like, you know what? Now your whole like now I'm just kind of like the people who are urbanists. Now your whole train and bike thing can be over because of, you know, the people who we elected. So you have to understand this is part of, you know, this affects your life too. Like, I mean, I hate the fact that you only are concerned because it impacts you, but like now, because they're like now they're it's like really weird. Like when I see them whole like doing like protest on like the congestion pricing in New York or the high speed rail in California, I'm like, all you had to do was tell your boys to vote for Harris, and you couldn't figure out how to do this, and now you're have to go out in the street and be like, you know, I mean, now it's, you know, here's the thing too. I think it's really important that we know that it's like, yes, I want, you know, I'm very concerned with urbanism. This is, you know, this is part of the project, a feminist newsletter about urbanism, even though it's called auto asphyxiation. But also, I think it's really important that like we have to, you know, democracy, if we had democracy, if we had strong civic engagement, if we had that, you wouldn't have to be doing this right now. If really, if we had had every, I mean, literally, white men who had college degrees, they still voted for Trump. So that 47% that voted for Harris, if you had just talked to people. And here's the thing, my husband, his friends respect him. You know, they're just like, oh, wow, you know, you're really super smart. He has like a PhD, his dad's PhD. I'm like, you're really super smart, and people respect him. If he had said something, if he had said something, I think he could have made a difference. And I don't think that white men who are progressive understand their power. Like, I don't think they do.
I don't think they do either. And I think part of it is because a lot of progressive white men know that white men are the prevailing power. And so they don't want to take that power and use that privilege for a progressive cause. They don't want to, leverage their privilege in that way. They
And
feel
like,
like,
why?
oh,
Why
I'm
not?
supposed to take a step back. Like, but no, but that's when you're supposed to leverage your privilege. That's when you're supposed to say, hey, no, listen to me. Like, I have degrees and I'm a white guy. Look, like,
Exactly. People are.
and
That's the sad thing. People are going to listen to what we say, but they will listen to like that's why I always tell them, I'm like, people will listen to you. And it's like weird because I'll see like my husband like saying things that people are like, oh, you're smart, and they listen to him, and I'm just like in my own head, I'm like, he doesn't like even understand like the like how much power he has in that, and he's like, well, I don't want to use it in that way. Well, you should. You literally should.
that's the way to use it.
Exactly. If you are a white man and you have an advanced degree and you have like a job that's like secure in regards to you have tenure, you work, well, I was gonna say work for the federal government. Oh, I'm not
All
making fun
our
of you.
federal workers.
I'm not trying to like I'm not trying to mock you, but it's like, dude, like you could have avoided you if you had just spoken up. If you had just said something, and there a lot of them are just kind of like now, like I have a passport, I have money, I have friends, I have family overseas. My mom was born in Sweden. I could go there. I get it, but it's like, wow. Think about if you had just used your power. The United States was a is was I keep saying was is a great project, and we're worth you fighting for. If you could just try a little bit, I could just try a little. I mean, I'm not. I feel like I'm like begging here, but I'm just like, oh my God, you just we need you. We have like really we have Black women working as hard as they can. We have Jewish men, Jewish women, like, you know, like Mexican Americans, Puerto Ricans, working as hard as we can. We need left white men to do more. We just need you to do more. We need you to talk to other white men. I don't want to hear your thoughts on what I'm doing as a Black woman. I don't want to hear your thoughts on like your whole like, your takes on Latin people. I want to hear your takes on white men. Challenge white men. Like I mean, I'm literally begging like progressive white men to please, for the love of God, talk to other white dudes. What's the problem?
It's make yourselves uncomfortable. Make yourselves uncomfortable because women, black women, people of color are making themselves uncomfortable every single day just by existing in society. And they're the ones who have to carry the empathy and compassion of society, especially women, especially black women. So yeah, it's hard to disrupt your comfortable little life, but you have to in order to see real change and real progress. And we're at a turning point here where we can salvage what we have and kind of go back to a status quo and try to reform that status quo. Or we can have a violent revolution. And it's really based on if people talk to one another. Like,
wow, that's
so what is it?
pretty cool.
What do you want?
Exactly. Do you
Like
want to like? I mean, I know you guys don't like violence, so in order to avoid violence, you literally have to talk to people, like white men who are progressive. You have to literally talk to other white men. Unfortunately, regardless, they do not care what women say. They don't care what people of color say. But if a white man who they respect says something to them, they will be like, "Oh, oh, I guess maybe that I was wrong." Like you, like literally have some cojones and do this. Like,
have some cojones. I've disrupted so many relationships in my life. Don't be afraid to disrupt relationships. So you've known this guy for 20 years. Do you really know him if you can't have a hard conversation with him? I would that's kind of a hollow friendship if you can't have a political or moral conversation, because to me politics is your moral base and how you are connected to other people and if you're connected to other people. So do you want to have a hollow friendship for 20, 30 years, or do you want to be able to actually connect with a person?
yeah, and they're not gonna. I think the thing is that they're afraid. They're like, oh well, they won't talk to me anymore. They will talk to you. Like here's the
They
thing,
will.
they admire you. They will talk to you. I see how people look at my husband. They're like, oh, like you're so smart, blah blah blah. And he kind of like his whole like he's kind of hesitant, And it's like it's ridiculous. It's like people respect you. They are looking for you for guidance, because look at how Trump was able to get people to like follow him. So literally, they there are so many people who want guidance. If
There
you
are so
are,
many people that want guidance, and there are a lot of white men right now that don't know that they want guidance and don't know how to ask for guidance because of that disruption in the social order with women having more power and more money in general. Like it's and though all of those feelings are okay. There's nothing wrong with feeling out of sorts, unsure of yourself, unsure of your path. But it's a lot harder to deal with an authoritarian regime and trying to escape that than
exactly.
it is to have a hard conversation with a person that you've been hanging out with for a while.
I know, no, it's so true. I mean, here's the thing: it's like yeah, exactly, exactly. I mean, we've talked a lot, and we're gonna like wrap this conversation up, because it's like but like we're really in a hard situation right now, and we need for white progressive men. And this is like if you're a high school graduate, if you're a high school dropout, if you're a college graduate, if you have a PhD, we don't care. If you're progressive and you have friends, we really, really need you to go, your hometown. Like you're like, oh, I moved to LA or I moved to New York. Look, we need you to talk to your friends in Wisconsin, in Missouri, in Georgia, in North Carolina,
in New Jersey.
yeah, New Jersey. We need you to talk to your friends because we can't do it. We really can't do it. Honestly, I can't date everybody. I can't cheat. I can't date everybody, but you can have a conversation. And this way, these right-wing people, if they have podcasts, you could have a podcast. You could talk to people. I know you're like the whole thing. And here's, we don't need you to give us advice. We don't need you to give women advice or people of color advice. We need you to talk to white men. We need you to focus on white men and tell them what they need to do because they don't seem to understand. And if they, pretend to be their friend, we don't fucking care what you do. Whatever you need to do to make this happen, we need to have you be part of that because we have faith in you. You're my partner. You're
My
Kimberly's
partner.
partner.
You're my friends.
You're our friends. We know you can do this, but you can't just keep talking to people of color and other leftists. You have to talk to your racist uncle. You have to talk to your racist dad or grandfather, whatever. We have to because we can't do it, but you can.
You can't be Luke Skywalker if you don't leave Tatooine. Luke, that's just
exactly.
Everybody wants to be Luke Skywalker, but nobody wants to leave Tatooine. You have to.
Exactly. So with that, this is Auto Asphyxiation. This is Lark
and Kimberly,
and we appreciate you supporting us and listening to us. And we're working on. I don't know what we're working on right now, but we're every episode is fun, and we love talking to you guys, and we're gonna have a live event at some point, but I don't know when, but we're gonna have a live event at some point.
I'm working on learning how to do stitches.
Yeah.
My learning suture kit came today, so
that's important. And here's the thing. Kimberly won't have to use that kit if you white men can figure out how to talk to other white men. For the love of God, please
don't make me do field surgery.
Exactly. I know a lot of these white guys are I don't want to be violent and all. I want this to fix that. I don't either. I wanted to have I wanted to use paperwork to fix this. But in order for us to use paperwork to fix this, you are going to have to use your words. You're going to actually talk to people in your, we call it your football, soccer, whatever clubs, your train clubs, your political clubs, your happy hours, your job. You're going to have to talk to people. White men, we need you to help us. And we don't need you to help us talk to women or people of color. We need you to talk to white men. Can you please, for the love of God, do that? That's literally all we need you to do. We don't need all this other stuff that you're doing. We don't need hot takes on your ideas of Black men and what they're doing, or Latin people and what they're doing, or Native American people and what they're doing. We need you to talk to white men.
We need you to uptake the hero's journey and become uncomfortable.
That sounded better. Yes, exactly. That's what we need to happen. Do that so that we can. I don't know, because I'm not looking forward to the whole apocalypse. I'm not ready, and I just
do that so that I can give people Botox and fuller lips instead of having to do field surgery.
Exactly. I want to get Botox. I was telling you, Kimberly, I was saying yeah, you should do plastic surgery so I can get that done to myself. But now we can't, because now we have to worry about this kind of stuff. I know some people are like, oh yeah, that's great. So now you guys can stop being shallow. Stop being an asshole, okay? Plastic surgery and makeup are wonderful things. Stop being that person. Anyway, okay. Okay. So thank you for listening to us, and we appreciate you, and thank you for listening.
Thank you.